May 14, 2015, was a day like any other for the Savopoulos family, but as the night came on, things began to change. A brutal home invasion led to the brutal murders of 3 family members, leaving the community full of questions. The perpetrator was eventually recognized through DNA evidence, but what was lost could not have been brought back. The murders became known as the DC Mansion Murders. Welcome back to True Crime Investigation, and before we begin, we offer our condolences for the loss that the community had to face. In 2015, as the school year neared its end, the Savopoulos family eagerly anticipated precious moments together. Savas and Amy cherished the prospect of spending quality time with their 3 children, recognizing how swiftly they were blossoming. During a recent gathering with friends, the talk naturally drifted to how the kids were growing up. A family friend, Jamie Fireman, recalled how they were all discussing how their kids were growing up so fast. With their oldest daughter, Abigail, about to graduate from high school, and their youngest, 10-year-old Philip, finishing 4th grade, discussions revolved around forthcoming summer plans. It was a relaxed moment, and everyone was just chatting, as Fireman recalled that day. Philip, a courteous youngster with a newfound enthusiasm for go-kart racing, was taking it easy due to a recent concussion. He had dreams of becoming a race car driver, and Fireman described him as a fantastic kid, much like his family. Those closest to Amy and Savas remember them as the kind of people who always had a caring heart. During their days at the University of Maryland, they were an inseparable duo, like peanut butter and jelly. Friends recalled that Savas was focused, and Amy was this vibrant, lively soul. Amy's conversion to the Greek Orthodox Church led to a beautiful union shortly after their college days, marked by a big Greek wedding filled with lively traditional dances. While Savas worked alongside his father, Philip, in expanding American Ironworks, they also expanded their own family. Savas, actively coaching his children's soccer teams, and Amy, a fixture at their exclusive schools, went above and beyond. She'd bring gingerbread house kits for the whole grade, and that was just a slice of her life. They were all about their kids. A devout practitioner of martial arts and a devout man, Savas devotedly supported the Greek Orthodox Church. The couple invested in child concussion research after their children's sports injuries and actively participated in various events, including hosting a fundraiser for Senator Olympia Snowe. Their kids were their world, and they were wholly dedicated to them. Recognized as a fair-minded boss, Savas's integrity shone in his leadership style. He knew his workers personally, cared about their families, and never acted superior. Echoing this sentiment, another employee said that he didn't just have a life, he cherished every moment of living. Savas shared a unique bond with his son Philip, often dubbed Mini Savas by friends. There was a great resemblance between the father and the son, and Amy would often remark on how they were both the same. Coaching Philip on the racetrack left a profound impact on those around them, and everybody thought that Philip was the ideal son. The memory of Figueroa is cherished by her family as a devoted mother who toiled tirelessly to support her children back in El Salvador. She worked hard, sending money home so we could have a better life. Knowing that her kids were in a safer zone, he brought her peace. On a fateful afternoon of May 14, 2015, the Washington, D.C. Fire Department received a distress call. A raging fire engulfed a grand brick home in the Woodley Park neighborhood. Rushing to the location, firefighters stumbled upon a haunting scene. Amidst the inferno lay the bodies of 3 adults and a child. Yet the horror didn't cease with the flames. It was unveiled that these victims, tragically, had not succumbed to the fire's fury. They had been brutally bludgeoned and stabbed before the fire ravaged the home, an attempt to get rid of the traces of a heinous crime. It was later found out that this home belonged to Savas Savopoulos, the CEO of American Ironworks, a construction enterprise specializing in monumental structures. The victims were identified swiftly as 46-year-old Savas, his 47-year-old wife Amy, their 10-year-old son Philip, and their devoted housekeeper, 57-year-old Vera Figueroa. A harrowing revelation emerged during the investigation. It seemed that the child had undergone torment before his death, seemingly to compel his father to comply with the assailant's demands. A report surfaced that Mr. Savopoulos' aide had delivered $40,000 in cash to the home just before it was set on fire. Meanwhile, Mrs. Savopoulos' Porsche 911 was discovered burning in a church parking lot in New Carrollton, MD, adding another layer of perplexity to the ordeal. The victims were confined for a haunting 19 hours and faced unimaginable terror. At the hands of the assailant, 10-year-old Philip underwent harrowing torture while the assailant was trying to extort $40,000 from the family. Subsequently, before setting the home on fire, the perpetrator bound and silenced the victims with duct tape, unleashing a brutal onslaught resulting in blunt force trauma and the vicious stabbing of young Philip. The grisly slaying of this family and their housekeeper, set in the heart of the capital's prosperous enclave, seized the nation's attention, gaining notoriety as the Mansion murders. As evidence surfaced, it was discovered that 2 pizzas had been dispatched to the residence in the evening. An envelope filled with cash left on the porch paid for these pizzas, a seemingly mundane transaction that would unveil a crucial clue. DNA extracted from an uneaten pizza crust would ultimately lead investigators to the suspect. The unsettling truth lingered. Perhaps the perpetrators were familiar faces. The sophisticated security system at the house remained inactive, suggesting either a deep understanding of the home or an entry given willingly. Meanwhile, those who interacted with Savas while the family was captive now carry an unsettling burden. Savas left a voicemail for Nelitza Gutierrez, their second housekeeper, on the evening of May 13th, advising her to skip work the next day, mentioning that Figueroa would be staying overnight instead. Gutierrez, who had been part of the family for 2 decades, said that it felt off. The request for an overnight stay was unusual. She only heard the message the next day, alongside a cautionary text from Amy, warning her to stay away from work. Gutierrez acknowledged that their message saved her life, grateful for those warnings that kept her from harm's way. Darren Dylan Wint, born on November 27, 1980, was tagged as the prime suspect in this grim case by law enforcement. His identification stemmed from a DNA match obtained from the crust of a Domino's pizza delivered to the residence on May 13th, a time when the family was reportedly held captive. Notably, Wint held a certification as a welder and had previously been employed at American Iron Works, hinting to investigators that the murders might not have been a random occurrence. Originally hailing from Guyana, Wint made his way to the U.S. in 2000. While he once aspired to serve in the United States Marine Corps, medical reasons stopped his training, leading to his discharge. His history was marked by a series of encounters with the law, including a 2009 conviction for second-degree assault in Maryland, resulting in a 30-day jail sentence. He later admitted guilt in a case of malicious destruction of property in 2010, part of a plea arrangement, where a burglary charge was dismissed. This extensive record further included past allegations involving theft, assault, a sexual offense, and illegal possession of weapons. Following the identification of Wint's DNA, authorities swiftly issued an arrest warrant, charging him with first-degree murder. On May 21, 2015, a week after the tragic event, Wint was located and apprehended in Northeast Washington, D.C. Subsequently, he faced formal charges of first-degree murder. Prosecutors expressed belief that Wint might have had assistance in executing the homicides and might not have acted alone. However, Wint stood as the sole individual charged in connection to the deaths. Prosecutors laid out a harrowing and chilling crime scene in their opening statements as the trial began. Until now, much remained unknown about Wint's defense strategy. According to Darren Wint's defense team, his involvement was a result of his 2 brothers orchestrating the crime, leaving him unwittingly entangled. In their opening remarks to the jury, Wint's defense portrayed him as a victim of his brother's actions, asserting that Daryl and Stefan Wint were the masterminds behind the heinous acts, absolving Darren Wint of any direct involvement. Acknowledging that Wint consumed pizza inside the house and was coerced into donning a construction vest, his defense insisted he did not know about the disturbing events unfolding upstairs in the Woodland Drive home. The defense also cast suspicion on Jordan Wallace, the individual who reportedly delivered the $40,000 ransom to the house, hinting at his potential involvement. However, prosecutor Christopher Bruckman countered these claims, stating that Wallace had no connection and was expected to testify. Bruckman, in his opening statement, depicted Darren Wint as driven by motives of money, greed, and vengeance. He alleged that Wint held the victims captive and then brutally murdered them before setting the house ablaze. Bruckman outlined a grisly scene involving Wint using baseball bats and a sword to perpetrate the killings, later dousing the victims in gasoline and setting the home on fire. He emphasized the significance of DNA evidence in this case. The prosecution revealed that besides the pizza crust, Darren Wint's DNA was also detected on a knife used to wedge open a window. Investigators unearthed searches on Wint's phone related to hiding spots for fugitives in countries without extradition treaties with the U.S. Regarding the defense's assertion of Wint's brother's involvement, officials pointed out that Darren Wint was apprehended with one of his brothers shortly after the murders. However, the brother was released without charges. Throughout the 7-week trial that Wint underwent, evidence emerged, including police evidence, photos, and surveillance footage. These haunting visual records and testimonies constituted vital elements in the case. A vivid portrayal emerged of the captive's ordeal, the adults bound, beaten, and asphyxiated while held hostage overnight. Autopsies revealed the gruesome details, delineating Philip's death caused by a ghastly combination of thermal and sharp force injuries. After DNA evidence was found, a nationwide manhunt ensued, culminating in Wint's apprehension near the Maryland-D.C. border. But there was a chilling discovery in his car, a substantial stash of cash and money orders, which confirmed that Wint was the man they were looking for. A critical moment in the investigation emerged with Savas's assistant, Jordan Wallace's testimony, recounting the haunting voicemail left by his employer on the eve of the tragedy. Wallace's actions in withdrawing a significant sum of money per Savopoulos' request, followed by the delivery of the package with $40,000 to the family's garage, confirmed the events that were suspected to have transpired. The evidence, an assortment of gripping images including crime scene photographs, surveillance footage, and remnants from the ravaged mansion, coalesced to form a haunting yet crucial image of the crime within the courtroom. But what was the motive? Even now, years after the tragic event, many questions linger. Throughout the trial, prosecutors struggled to pin down a clear motive, and Wint himself has remained tight-lipped about the case, even post-sentencing. Despite this, what we do know from the available facts suggests this wasn't a random act. Wint's employment history provides some clues. He worked as a welder at American Iron Works, owned by Mr. Savopoulos, from 2003 to 2005. His dismissal from the company reportedly followed a threatening incident involving a co-worker and a knife. After losing this job, Wint sought re-employment in 2008 and 2009, indicating his struggle to maintain steady work. In 2010, Wint's troubles came to a head when he was arrested at a gas station near the American Iron Works headquarters, reportedly armed with a BB pistol and a machete. Although weapons charges were dropped, Wint pleaded guilty to possessing an open container of alcohol. These incidents collectively paint a picture suggesting that the invasion and tragic deaths were targeted, stemming from workplace-related tensions that escalated into violence. The span of a decade between Wint's dismissal and the attack on Mr. Savopoulos and his family is somewhat unusual but not unprecedented in cases involving individuals who harbor long-held grievances. For instance, take Jared Ramos, who pleaded guilty to a violent assault at the Annapolis Gazette in 2018, resulting in 5 deaths. Ramos had previously sued the newspaper for defamation in 2012, which was dismissed in 2013, leading to threats made via letters and social media. After a 2-year silence, Ramos resurfaced with a crude tweet before he attacked the newspaper. Similarly, Henry Bellows' case saw him perpetrate an armed assault on New York's Bronx-Lebanon Hospital Center in 2017 after being fired in 2015 for sexual harassment. His violent act, which resulted in the death of 1 doctor and injuries to 6 others, was fueled by his grievance against a specific doctor he blamed for his termination. Bello took his life after failing to find the targeted doctor during the attack. Wint didn't coincidentally end up at the CEO's residence, engaging in kidnapping, extortion, and murder. This chilling invasion was the culmination of a decade-long buildup of grievances, contemplation of violence, and meticulous planning. This transition from holding a grievance to executing violence is often referred to as the pathway to violence, a gradual process culminating in a devastating outcome. An enduring mystery revolves around how Wint orchestrated the assault on the Savopoulos' home. A crime as intricate as a home invasion kidnapping doesn't simply materialize out of thin air. It follows what experts term the attack cycle. Investigators delved into Wint's phone activity in the 8 months preceding the tragedy, but found no records of him searching for the Savopoulos family's address or directions to their residence. This absence could suggest he conducted these searches on another device or, intriguingly, already possessed this critical information before the invasion. While it's speculative, let's rewind to Wint's arrest in 2010 at a gas station near American Iron Works. That locale offers a strategic vantage point for surveillance, a spot to monitor a potential target. The notion that Wint was coincidentally hanging around a gas station near American Iron Works while armed in 2010 seems improbable. It's more plausible that he was there to surveil Mr. Savopoulos, or perhaps, given the weapons, had more sinister intentions leading to his arrest. Considering Wint's perspective, American Iron Works represented a known link to Mr. Savopoulos, making it a logical starting point for surveillance. It's conceivable that lacking Mr. Savopoulos' home address, Wint might have trailed him from the workplace to his residence, especially if Mr. Savopoulos wasn't vigilant or on the lookout for potential surveillance. Examining the disturbing sequence of events, the ruthless murders, Wint's past dismissal for wielding a knife, and his 2010 armed arrest near American Iron Works, Wint seems to have harbored animosity towards Mr. Savopoulos over an extended period. Some of Wint's former colleagues attested to feeling intimidated by his conduct before his dismissal, a common thread in workplace violence incidents. In scenarios like this, aggrieved individuals often signal their discontent through threats or other forms of communication. Prosecutors pursued threatening communications to establish a motive but came up empty-handed during Wint's trial. There was no evidence of direct contact or threats against Mr. Savopoulos presented in court, as confirmed by Megan Cloherty of WTOP News, a close observer of the trial. Darren Wint had adamantly pleaded not guilty to a series of serious charges, including multiple counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and arson. His ties to the Savopoulos family business, American Iron Works, as a welder in Maryland, came to an end when he lost his job. The prosecution contended that Wint acted independently, driven by a desire to claim a $40,000 ransom. Contrastingly, his defense team presented an alternate narrative, suggesting that he was framed by his half-brother Daryl Wint and stepbrother, both of whom remained uncharged in the case. Throughout the trial, prosecutors conceded the potential of Wint having assistance, considering that 4 individuals had been held captive for a daunting 36 hours before their tragic deaths. Wint took the stand during the trial, recounting how he was allegedly lured to the Savopoulos residence in Upper Northwest Washington by Daryl. He detailed his version of events, explaining how he inadvertently left his DNA on a pizza crust at the house, ultimately leading to his arrest. According to his testimony, he claimed to have visited at Daryl's request for a paint and drywall job, but was later coerced into assisting in clearing the house of valuable items. During his account, Wint stressed his refusal to participate in the burglary after Daryl suggested he wear a construction hat and green reflective vest to blend in discreetly. He maintained that he remained confined to a room on the main floor, unaware of any other presence in the house or any harm being inflicted upon others. As per Wint's testimony, he encountered Daryl at a construction firm on May 13th, the very day authorities alleged the tragic intrusion occurred at the Savopoulos residence. Wint's narrative unfolds with Daryl requesting to use his minivan, offering to compensate him with at least $300. That night, Wint claims to have lodged at a friend's place, devoid of any further communication from his brother, until the following morning, May 14th, when Daryl showed up driving a Porsche. Together they arrived at the Savopoulos home, entering with a key provided by Daryl. Wint recounts his brother's odd gesture of delivering a pizza box wearing construction gloves, responding to Wint's hunger, a detail that struck him as peculiar. He mentioned returning an uneaten slice to the box due to its unfavorable temperature and texture, expressing discontent. The situation reportedly escalated when his brother solicited assistance in pilfering from the residence, resulting in Wint leaving behind the hard hat and vest. Investigative findings identified Wint's DNA on the pizza, as well as on the aforementioned hat and vest. However, when probed about his DNA discovered on a knife in the basement, Wint failed to explain. Following the incident, Wint claimed that Daryl discussed disposing of the minivan and later furnished him with $6,000 to purchase a new vehicle. Additionally, he asserted receiving 2 iPhones, allegedly recovered from a park by Daryl, which authorities contend were stolen from the Savopoulos household. Wint also contended that his online activities post-incident, such as searches on evading lie detector tests, stemmed from a fear of wrongful incarceration. He asserted initiating these searches after watching news coverage about the fire, apprehensive about any potential connection of his minivan to the case. Darren Wint faced sentencing for the brutal killings at the D.C. mansion. The judge handed down an unequivocal ruling: 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole for the unspeakably savage murders that shook the community to its core. In her sentencing, Judge Juliet McKenna condemned the actions as heinous, atrocious, and cruel, highlighting the unimaginable horror of the victims being held hostage in their own homes for 24 hours. Throughout the proceedings, Wint showed a chilling lack of remorse. When prompted by the judge to address the court, his cold response was simply, "No, Your Honor." The daughters of the slain couple, Katerina and Abigail Savopoulos, exhibited an astonishing level of forgiveness in their statements, despite the heft of the tragedy. Katerina expressed her forgiveness towards Wint, emphasizing that hatred wouldn't undo the immense pain caused by the ordeal. Her sister Abigail emotionally testified, sharing her continued longing for her mother's presence. Witnessing the emotional outpouring in the courtroom, family members couldn't contain their sorrow. Abigail, speaking through tears, shared heartfelt memories of her lost family while recounting their cherished bonds. The sisters painted a vivid picture of their family life, portraying their brother as an avid Harry Potter and go-kart enthusiast, their father's unwavering commitment to family, and their mother's heartfelt weekly letters were woven into their words. They also honored Veralicia, highlighting her role beyond being a housekeeper. She was a mentor who shared invaluable life lessons. Katerina's words cut through the anguish, emphasizing their unconventional journey through cemeteries instead of college tours and the search for the perfect coffin instead of glamorous prom dresses. She underscored that forgiveness, not hatred, was their path to healing. Throughout the emotional testimonies, the convicted killer remained impassive and fixated on the defense table. His silence contrasted sharply with the heartfelt expressions of grief and forgiveness from the victim's loved ones. The guilty verdict, delivered by a federal jury after a grueling 6-week trial, dismantled Wint's claims of innocence, revealing a desperate attempt to shift blame onto his brother and half-brother. A futile effort against overwhelming evidence. What do you think about the sentence? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.